Minister, as usual, welcome to the committee. And before I start, honorable members, please, if you want Minister to stop, please raise your hand so I do not, eat into your time. And I have told members personally, so you have your full time, and I'm equitable with every member. So, Minister, please keep an eye. If I raise my hand, then that means, please wrap up, and we go back to the members. Thank you. With this, we'll give Minister 5 minutes to start. Minister, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. I do promise to behave. Je tiens tout d'abord à souligner que nous sommes réunis ici sur...
Let me begin by acknowledging that we're meeting today on the traditional unceded territories of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe people. Thank you for inviting me to discuss measures that my department has launched in response to the crises in Sudan and Gaza.
Sudan and Gaza are devastating and have left Canadians anxious to bring their loved ones to safety. It's also not lost on me that the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza continues through Ramadan, a holy time meant to be cherished with family and friends. After fighting broke out in Sudan last spring, my department responded by supporting the assisted departure of Canadian citizens, permanent residents, locally engaged staff, and their families. Malgré les difficultés liées à assurer le bon...
Despite challenges in keeping Canada's Embassy and Visa Application Centre in Sudan running, we are continuing to process applications from Sudan through our global network. We have prioritized applications for temporary and permanent residents, including refugee applications. We also waived most fees for Canadians and permanent residents who need replacement documents and other assistance to leave Sudan. Sudanese nationals who want to stay in Canada during the conflict can apply to change or extend their temporary resident status free of charge through October.
We also launched a humanitarian pathway to permanent residence for people living in Sudan where the conflict began, including non-Sudanese nationals. Their Canadian family will support them here and help them integrate with the assistance of our settlement services. Every crisis requires a tailored and different response, and the situation in Gaza calls for Canada to respond in ways that meet the unique demands of those on the ground seeking refuge. Nous accordons la priorité aux demandes de résidence permanente.
We prioritize permanent residence applications from the region within most family-based streams. And for Israelis and Palestinians in Canada who feel unsafe returning, we have waived fees to change or extend their temporary resident status, including applying for study and open work permits.
Canadians remain understandably deeply worried for their extended family in Gaza. In January, we launched measures to offer them a temporary safe haven here. Family members holding Palestinian passports can apply for temporary resident visas, and their Canadian family will support them for a year once they arrive. They'll also have access to interim federal health coverage and obviously federal and settlement services. The policy has up to now been currently accepting 1,000 applications into processing. And as we monitor the situation, we're evaluating the needs to update that response and to increase the application of people that are covered by our measures. I do not have a specific additional number to offer the committee today, but members should be aware that our teams are working on it. And in the past couple of weeks, we have started to increase, we can get into this in the question and answer, the number of codes that are being issued to people seeking to exit Gaza. Usually, applicants need to submit fingerprints and a photo before they are moved out of a country. But since my department has no presence in Gaza to collect biometrics, applicants provide enhanced biometric information on their forms. This allows us to do preliminary security screening while they're still in Gaza so we can finalize their applications faster once they leave. Biometrics are then collected in Cairo. This is standard practice in crises where we have no presence on the ground. This is something that we used in Afghanistan as well. Nous avons bien évidemment entendu les inquiétudes.
We have, of course, heard concerns about the form, and so we have altered or removed some questions. And since we know that applicants may not have access to all the required documents, I have directed my department and officers to be flexible and to assess each situation on a case-by-case basis.
movement out of Gaza remains limited and out of Canada's control. Though I'm frustrated by this, I can only imagine the desperation of families in Canada must feel as they wait for their loved ones to come. And I know many are gathered here physically today and are feeling that. We're also working with local authorities at every level to make sure people's names who we've submitted are approved to exit Gaza, and we'll leave no stone unturned in our campaign to have families safely reunited with their families in Canada. Je vous remercie et je répondrai volontiers avec.
Thank you, and I will be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, Minister. Before I go to the round, I would welcome two members here. Mr. Erskine Smith is here online, and we are also joined by Mr. Morris. And it's my understanding that Mr. Bruno Desepp will share his time with Mr. Morris at some point in time. So with this, I will go to the first round, and Mr. Kimmich, for 6 minutes, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister. So I'm going to start with just a simple numbers question, Minister. Can you give us an update on both programs, Sudan and Gaza? How many individuals have come in through those programs? And then separately, how many individuals have come in through all government programs from the region due to the conflict?
Honourable Minister.
So breaking these down into the program in Sudan, first off, the program has received, as of March 13th, so as of a few days ago, 2,667 applications and 306 applications representing 689 persons have been accepted into this. When it comes to people that have come since the crisis and the terrorist attack on October 7th, there have been, in various measures together, put them all together, and then I'll break them down, Tom, into the specific pathway, which is obviously limited to 14 people. There have been physically from Israel 1,661 people that were evacuated, 839, which include Canadians and permanent residents from Gaza itself, and from the West Bank, 79 individuals. We have currently, as part of the temporary public policy, accepted 986 complete applications into processing as of March 4th of 2024. There have been 14 people who have taken matters into their own hands and have been successfully able to exit Rafah gates, and that number, as I mentioned earlier, is 14.
So Chair, so my next question, Minister, then is, you said 14 exited through the Rafah crossing on their own, correct? So I was going to ask you, out of those that have been issued or have their applications accepted for both programs, Sudan and Gaza, how many have physically come to Canada?
So with respect to Sudan, there have, I believe the answer is 0. This is a program that was just launched. We expect them to land physically, we hope, later in the year or early in 2025. And with respect, and so there's some nuances to be drawn here. There are a number of people over the, I would say, the December period, January through March, that we have been able to extract on an ad hoc basis. To children and a woman under dire medical exigent circumstances, we were able to get to Cairo for the medical procedure in question. But we have not. There have been some of them have come to Canada, but the number is very limited and negligible compared to the ambition of this program.
Member.
So thank you, Chair. So Minister, I guess can you provide perhaps for both programs then where those with approved applications, in which country are they in right now?
We could provide that to you at a later date with respect to the program that we launched to exit for family members that are in Gaza. Those people are largely still situate in Gaza, with the exceptions that I mentioned. And in Sudan, there could be largely Sudan, but there could be other countries where they're physically present currently.
Thank you, Chair. So I went to look at the UNHCR's update for the Sudan emergency response. It was numbers that were being provided for Egypt. It says there are 508,827 people, according to UNHCR, that have fled Sudan. They're claiming about 500,000 of those people are Sudanese nationals, and then 8,827, again, this is their numbers, are individuals of other nationalities have crossed into Egypt between April 2023 and March 2024. And these are numbers that UNHCR has received from the government of Egypt. Out of that group, how many of those have applications approved to come to Canada?
Honorable Minister.
That, but we could get you that number at a later date.
That's fine.
Honorable Member.
Thank you, Chair. So what is the, I guess, security interaction, and have you spoken to your counterpart in Egypt?
Honorable Minister.
Our officials do coordinate on an active basis.
Is it only happening at the officials level? There's no ministerial contact?
With respect to Egypt, yes.
Okay. And with, in the case of Israel?
I have spoken with the ambassador in particular, and obviously our heads of mission have spoken. The Prime Minister on a number of topics has spoken to Mr. Netanyahu, and as well as Benny Gantz, as well as others, and that's not to mention the work that Minister Jolie does as part of her job.
And in the case of the Palestinian Authority?
I have not spoken to anyone in the PA. As you know, Minister Jolie met with Mr. Abbas. And we do, as security measures, do coordinate at times with those, but on an official basis.
So my question then is going to go kind of like the interaction of officials then. Can you describe the security relationship then? Because the reaction of the government of Egypt has been different for those who are to come through the Rafah crossing versus those who have fled the civil war in Sudan. So can you explain what that interaction is like and how that's perhaps complicated the government of Canada's response?
Well, certainly, and it's a highly pertinent question, MP Kamich. This is not an area where it is easy to extract folks. Correspondingly, it has been easier to have people exit Ukraine, for example, and perhaps even Sudan. Given the gravity of the crisis in Gaza, there is an intense security perimeter that you are familiar with. The coordination in order to get people out requires interaction with the government of Egypt. It requires cooperation with COGAT, which is a wing of the Israeli Minister of Defense. And when we submit lists, which we have with respect to the Palestinians, which have family members here and we are trying desperately to get out, we have submitted a list of well north of 300 people.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Mr. Kamich. We will go to Madam Kaibaga for 6 minutes. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to go back to some of those numbers that you just talked about. I wasn't sure if I heard the answer on how many people have exited through this specific program for Gazans through the official Rafah crossing.
It has been very few and far between. There are 14 people that have exited. We have, on an ad hoc basis, been able to extract people, but through intense diplomatic efforts, but not as a result of the names that we have submitted in due course to COGAT, amongst other, on the list that we have. And that is the preferred way of getting people out in a way that doesn't involve intermediaries and bribing people of dubious backgrounds.
And the 14 people are specifically through the program, or is it people that got out on their own with their own families with their own money?
These are people that got out by their own efforts.
So not from this program then?
Not through the efforts of us trying to extract people through
So it's fair to say that nobody has come through with this program?
They are covered by the program, but they are not covered by the official way in which we are trying to get people out. They have gotten out on their own.
Is there a way to address the concerns regarding the code requirement for Gazans to be able to submit for temporary resident visas?
Sorry,
the code requirement. There's been a code that has been submitted, and it's you receive it once in a while, and I think it's been stopped now. Can we get some information on more of the code? And I've never seen the code before.
As of last week, we started increasing the codes, and we will be increasing the codes in increments of 250 by week, just to control.
And what is the rationale behind the code?
Well, it's part of the process. It's part of when you initiate the application process. You issue people a code as part of their further step in the process. I can defer to officials to describe the step plan.
Is this a code that we've used before? Maybe the official can help answer.
Deputy Minister Kosher.
Thank you, Chair, for the answer. Question. So basically, the code is built in a systematic way to make sure that we have the complete applications. So when there is an interest from any of the person who is an anchor relative here to bring someone from the Gaza, they are actually applying through the web form, which triggers a code. That code is actually allowing them an ability to submit an application.
I'm so sorry. Just because of the interest of time, if I cut you, I apologize ahead of
No
time. I'm just more curious to know, like, if this is something we've done before, or is this like a special code for Gazans?
That is a code specifically for this program.
And the program of using codes has never been used before, but for this program, for specifically this community.
I'm not understanding the question, Mr.
Okay, maybe you can submit it later and let us know if this is something that's been done before. I want to be able to use my time appropriately. I do have another question as well. Maybe the official can help answer this question, and the minister as well. We've heard concerns from our communities that Gazans, when they're applying, they've been asked like extensive questions that have to do with social media, identifying like specific marks that are on their bodies. I've never heard of this before. Can you clarify if this is something that we usually do, and why are we asking people for social media? Is this regular practice?
So there would be a variety of reasons to get, obviously, a complete background of the people that we are applying. They are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents. This is something that was used, for example, in Afghanistan. Obviously, there are at times security reasons for that in order to get the full profile of someone that we are trying to identify and get out in a very difficult context. But obviously, there's also the humanitarian concern of making sure people just have to stay alive. So what I've asked my officials to do in this context is to show some operational flexibility given the humanitarian concern. So yes, it has been used before. The challenge, obviously, is not being able to do biometrics in place in Gaza. So we have to be relatively certain before we take the next step of submitting a list that will be scrubbed by a party or parties with their own security concerns, and then move on to the next stage of biometrics.
Can we maybe get the officials to submit through our committee other examples of where we've asked folks to submit social media? Sure. I want to go to the next question again because of time. The cap on 1,000 applicants for the program, if we could get an understanding as to why this decision was made on the cap of 1,000, as well as for the cap for Sudanese. How did IRCC decide on 3,250? And we also have heard that this also has not had anybody come to Canada. What's the plan to actually make it work?
Honourable Minister.
So in the case of the latter question, MP Kaibanga, the cap and the work that we did with respect to the Sudanese program, which has a permanent aspect to it, was one that we worked with a number of Sudanese umbrella organizations across Canada. It has to work. It has to do with the capacity of the diaspora members, our own internal planning and planification. That is something that at times can be a bit of an art and a bit of a science, but we came to that number, the 3,000 plus, that on the theory that it would translate to about 5,000 actual people, and then on the Gaza pathway, there's a little bit more context in it in and of its temporary measure for a number of reasons, including geopolitical considerations, but also the fact that we did this in a relatively expedited time frame over the Christmas period, being unique compared to our similarly situated partners who have not done this. So we are kind of out there as an example of a unique program that we didn't know exactly what the numbers were, and so we established this cap in that optic and context, knowing that inevitably we would probably have to increase it once we got a sense of the numbers. We do now have a better sense of the numbers and are moving to show some flexibility and decrease them.
Thank you, Minister, and thank you, Madam Kaibaga. We will go to Mr. Brunner-Desapp. Mr. Brunner-Desapp, go ahead for 6 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister, for being with us today. I apologize for being with you via Zoom. I had no choice today. I'd like to talk about a very specific case with you, which may give you an idea of what it means to try to understand the program that you've implemented. You just said that you implemented it during the holiday period. I have someone who got in touch with me, Ms. Nibal Lubad. She is a doctor, a Canadian of Palestinian origin, who lives near Niagara, and she has family in Gaza. Her two parents managed to leave in extremis. They left Gaza and ended in Egypt. She got in touch with us because she tried with her Conservative MP in the region and she received no assistance. So people sent her to me, and I tried to get in touch with people in your office, and we tried to get her parents out of there. Her father is Khalil Lubad, and her mother is Jessica Lubad. Unfortunately, it's been hell. I think it was December 22nd or 23rd during the holidays, as you know, Mr. Minister. I work all the time, regardless of the hour of the day or night, and it was the holiday period. And here today, we have no response from the department. Requests were sent to Nibal requesting sending missing documents, which had already been sent, so she sent them again. And since then, your department has been completely silent. I would like to have your assurance today that somebody from your team and your office will get in touch with me after this session so that we can resolve this matter and bring these people here to Canada. First of all, thank you. Second, I'm glad and delighted to hear that at least some people from her family are safe. Whether it's in Egypt, we expect that if it's family members subject to the parameters of our program, they could come to who could come to Canada. This is the first time that you've mentioned this to me live, and I'd be happy to work with my team on follow-up. But please understand that we will make the effort. Obviously, the effort now is to get people out who have family connections in Canada, and to get them out of Gaza so that these people be safe and they can exit to Egypt and then ultimately they could come to Canada. Mr. Duceppe, we will work on this with my team. Excellent. Mr. Brunel Duceppe?
Second, I think bells are ringing. Is there a unanimous consent in the committee to continue and stop? No? So we don't have a unanimous consent, so I have to suspend the meeting.